I just wanted to create a safe space, online and offline, where, you know, women were in control, where we could have the conversations, we could ask questions. My life pre-adulthood was probably more of a life than most people would live in an entire lifetime. And itchy feet again, I think it was that itchy feet of moving all the time. I thought all my problems would be solved.
Welcome to this week's episode of A Beginner's Guide to Being a Grown-Up with me, your host, Sam Cooper-Gray. And this week, we welcome Emma Sayle of Killing Kittens to the podcast to tell us about how she started Killing Kittens, why she started Killing Kittens, and everything in between. So join me in welcoming Emma to the podcast. Emma, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to hear about your story today. And we're going to kick off with the question we always kick off, which is, tell me a little bit about your journey into adulthood.
Wow, it's a big old question, isn't it? Do you know what, I kind of, well, my life pre-adulthood was probably more of a life than most people would live in an entire lifetime. We moved, you know, I can't remember how many countries I lived in. We moved every 2 years. Dad was Army and Foreign Office, worked at the embassy, and I was at school in England, you know, boarding school for 10 years, and so I kind of went into adulthood very much an adult already, if that makes sense. I'd seen the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'd travelled, you know, I was used to travelling by myself all the time, being thrown into very adult situations of, you know, all the sort of networking and all the, you know, the Foreign Office, all the parties and drinks things and functions and receptions they do, and I always went everywhere parents went, and so had seen a lot, and had surrounded myself with every nationality and religion, and, you know, that the big picture. I think going into adulthood had sort of seen all that, but I also went journey into it angry, with a real fire in my belly, because I think seeing all of that, and also growing up with a very old school, you know, he was Eton, Cambridge, Sandhurst, Guards, military intelligence, Foreign Office, sort of the old, dad who's sort of very, you know, women know your place, and girls should be seen and not heard, and be a good girl, and which, when you're like me, you know, came out fighting from minute one, and we had screaming match after screaming match after screaming match would be me and Dad. And there was always this fire in my belly of, well, why can't girls do it? If boys can do it, why can't we do it? Whether that was climbing trees, playing sport, playing the trombone in the school orchestra, it was sort of cutting all my hair off. It was sort of, well, if they're doing it, I'm going to do it. And so the journey into adulthood was pretty, it wasn't suddenly 1 minute you're a child, 1 minute you're an adult. I was, you know, very independent. I'd been at boarding school, and back in, you know, those days, from the age of 8, it wasn't like you saw your parents every weekend. Like, you know, the Child Act hadn't come out at the beginning. We couldn't even speak to them the first couple of years at school. So I was used to being on my own, and sort of looking after yourself, and having, you know, my tribe of people around me with my girls and friends, and that sort of, so that kind of journey. There was, into adulthood, I had the independence, I had the bloody mindedness, I had the anger and the fire in my belly, and the how I can do it by myself, and I don't need anyone's help. I'm on my own, can do it by myself, and that's sort of, and then suddenly you're an adult, and it's the same problems really, and the same anger.
So obviously, you know, very international upbringing with all the challenges that brings. I was also an armed forces kid when I was very young, and did those moves. I think there is something when you move a lot that enables you to kind of take your home with you, kind of wherever you are. That independent streak, I think, is very much a common theme in people who move a lot when they're small. So you hit 18, leave school, I'm assuming. Tell me a little bit about that journey on from there.
Then left school and went and took a year out. So went out to South Africa, and originally I was meant to teach sport in a school for a year, but it was another boarding school, and I did a term. Had a bit of a thing with the head boy, because they've got a weird system out there. There was the older year is older than the gap year students. So, you know, and I'd been in an all-girls boarding school for 10 years. So, you know, this sort of hadn't really had the boy thing in the mix, and then just thought I don't want to be working at a school. So my parents said you can only leave if you've got somewhere to go to. So I totally lied and said I had a job in a bar in Cape Town. I didn't. I got on a bus. I ran up to Zimbabwe with some friends I'd met at the school, and then got one of those Greyhound buses all the way down to Cape Town. On my own, I remember getting off the bus in Cape Town with a suitcase, not knowing anyone and no job and nowhere to stay, thinking, okay, now what? So did, but just wandered up the beaches and asking in bars, and then one bar needed staff, and the staff were like, where are you staying? And I went, I haven't got a clue, no idea. And they said there's some of us just in a hostel up the road, so did that. And then my parents were in Kuwait, so I went back to Kuwait. I was coaching sport out there, and then started university. Went to Birmingham University, did sports science. Loved university, never for the play bit and the sport bit. Never went to any lectures. Got the Loch Ness Monster Award at uni, which was the most unrecognisable person at in any of the lectures on the course. So, but I kind of So I just couldn't sit still in lectures, and but I was running like the drink. It was called Cocksock. People think it's linked to what I do now. It's not. It's Cocktail Society, and it wasn't posh. It was 3,000 people in a Birmingham nightclub and 50p cocktails in barrels, and so I was sort of doing all of that side of things at uni, and then came into London. Went down the route of I've got to get a proper job and recruitment consultants, and started doing advertising at the independent newspaper. Which I figured that if I could sell advertising space, classified ad space in the least sold newspaper at the time in the country, then that, on the sales side. So, so we did that, and but then went into sort of financial PR and investment side of things, investor relations. Whilst doing personal training on top of that for extra money, as in coach clients, mornings and evenings. And then did a runner to the Caribbean, just after a crappy breakup, arsehole boyfriend, and just I'd had enough, and itchy feet again. I think it was that itchy feet of moving all the time. I thought all my problems would be solved. One of my clients I'd been training moved out there and phoned me and said, there's a new gym opening on the island and they need a manager, and I thought it'd be brilliant, do you want to do it? And I didn't even draw a breath and said, yeah, I'm out. So I then literally flew out the next week, and my friends were like, where are you going? How long for? I went, I had no idea. Sort of indefinite, moving to the Caribbean. And then realised that life on an island wasn't all that fun as a 20, you must have been 22, 23. And the novelty of it being hot and sunny all year round does wear off. I just wanted to be cold for a bit, and I wanted the rain and the seasons, and I'm a sunny person and a heat person. Came back and went into entertainment PR, and it was kind of through that, and then thinking I could do it by myself because the money was so awful. I figured that if I could get a couple of clients, then I was pretty much doubling the pay. I was on working for an agency that I found started helping out the erotica PR for the erotica show, so that got me into the adult world, and again that the fire in belly was just stronger and stronger and stronger, and it was stronger on the dating front personally, of like, well, why can boys sleep around and do whatever they want sexually, and there's no judgment, and girls, there's so much shame, and you can't do anything. It was always that kind of, you can do everything but actually have sex, and then there's no judgment, and it's sort of the double standard just across the board. And I'd had a harassment issue, like when I was doing financial PR as well, with a boss, and got told that I could report it, but I'd be seen as a troublemaker, and if I wanted a job in the city, then did I really want to be causing that, because everyone talks? So that was another reason to quit and run off to the Caribbean. So it was always that fire, and then seeing the adult world and seeing, hang on a minute, these are sex toy brands, they're lingerie brands, they're all for women, but the people I was talking to were men. Launched the company. They were designing it all. It was their businesses. And I just thought, hang on a minute, this is again men designers telling women what we should be doing and thinking and feeling and acting and using and wearing. And it just added to all that. Just the fuel was there. It was properly stoked furnace by this point. And it was that time when Sex and the City had come out, around 2004, 2005, and Sex and the City had come out, and Summers hit the high street. So sex toys went into, Laylo went into Selfridges, and I was out and about as well, socially with a posse in London who were well known, and the women were well known, and in the papers for they were sort of swinging and swapping and not caring, what anyone thought. And these women, a decade older than me, were I just thought they were amazing. And the fact they had no shame and didn't care. And that's sort of how the business, Killing Kittens, the business, was born 20 years ago. I just wanted to create a safe space, online and offline, where women were in control, where we could have the conversations, we could ask questions, we had that tribe and community, and there was no shame and no judgment, and just the opposite of what we made the first moves, we could only buy the tickets. It's sort of the opposite of what I was seeing in real life and the real world, and the world I wish I lived in. So that's sort of how business, the whole business side started. And from day one, it was sort of it was a movement and a complete rethinking of the norm when it came to female and sexuality, women and sexuality, and that was the big picture in my head of, which is 20 years on now.
And at the time we did that, it was so new, as you say. We were just getting to the point where, you'd have sex toys in a shop, let alone, what you were doing with Killing Kittens. And I remember Anne Summers actually had a factory not far from where I lived, and I used to drive back home after university and drive past the factory, and she had this massive sign on the top of it, and just having the sign up there, even though everyone knew what Anne Summers was like quite out there. So what pushback did you get when you? So I suppose two questions. So Emma, for our listeners, can you tell us a little bit more about what Killing Kittens is and the pushback you got when you first started?
Okay, so it launched Killing Kittens 20 years ago, and it as a movement and a community where women were in control. They were the ones making the first move. They were the ones buying the tickets. So it was what started as events, as small underground events that was masked, and the way that where if you wanted to have sex, you can have sex. It started, has snowballed into sort of much bigger events with a lot of performers and DJs and entertainment, the experiential side of it. So, and also what started with the small events was a small online community. So the chat, kind of like MySpace, of sort of forums and the chat groups that you could ask questions in. So it was a very femme-led party set up to start with, and that has kind of snowballed. The online world of it has snowballed into the Wax app by Killing Kittens, which has a whole community side. It has the chat rooms. Think WhatsApp meets Bumble meets Eventbrite, so all those bits, and then the whole education workshop side of it and membership side of it. So you have the online side, you have the Killing Kittens events, and then we've launched KK Cruises and Retreats. So we've got 5 cruises coming out from next year to complete takeover of boats and retreats. So it's very hedonistic, but very femme energy, femme-led set up with kind of female pleasure at the core of it. And so we've now got, it's the KK group with the kind of the 3 very obvious runways on. But pushback, I still get pushback. There's still I've always had pushback. From minute one, so much abuse and what you're doing and you're mad and it's disgusting, and just people instantly seeing the sex, and you say sex, even saying the word sex. I've said that. I've said it on quite a few daytime business panels, and the minute you say the word sex, it's like, just abuse. I get it messaging to me everywhere, from LinkedIn to Instagram to Facebook. You get the messages, and and that's it really. It's sort of there is pushback. I mean, there's pushback. You see the pushback locally, you know, with school parents. You can see the offness, and because they assume that, you know, they've read one Daily Mail headline and they think they know what you do and who you are, and that assumption, and it's just narrow-minded. It's just narrow-minded people who can't. Yeah, they just don't know. They don't understand it, and they don't want to understand it, and so I don't really worry about it.
I mean, and you say that as you don't really worry about it, but that must be quite a journey to get to that point that, you know, because it happens to you so often. The ability, I think, goes back to that tenaciousness clearly in you when you were younger to not. I get the impression that someone's saying no to you or making a noise that they don't like what you're doing when you have a complete belief in it. You know, going back to you saying you used to have screaming matches with your dad when you were younger, kind of makes me feel that probably makes you more determined.
Yeah, no, completely. And also, I've learned a lot with ADHD. That's, you know, you've think conversation on that, and a lot becomes clearer. It's, you know, that it's in you, it's ingrained in you. And if, you know, if someone says, you know, someone says turn left, you turn right, and a big part and a massive part of the way we think is that sense of justice, that sense of if something doesn't feel right, if I've felt that someone's been attacked, if, you know, someone's being bullied, or if I can't help myself. I just, you know, sometimes even now it's like, do you really need to take on that battle? I've got a lot better at not taking everything on. But there's just something in you that if you don't, and I did it the whole way through school, you know, I was always making a stand for things I didn't believe in, and didn't feel was right. So even if everyone's going, well, that's just how it is. I hate that expression. It's just how it is. That is a red flag. You know, that's just fire. You're fueling it even more. You've just literally poured a canister of petrol on my head, and I'm going to go even harder. I hate it. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
It's just the world we live in. It's like, no, what? It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
And I think because when I launched it, I was and even now I have the same amount of passion that, you know, 20 years on, it's much bigger than me. So it's not, I always say it's ego, and, you know, it's yourself and your ego. And I think a lot of people start businesses and there's so much ego involved, and they take everything really and little things. And I say to people all the time, it's not about you. No one cares about you. You know what I mean? It's sort of, why have you snowballed some tiny little press thing? And so, you know, suddenly it's the world is then it. And I think that's the difference in it. From day one, it's never been about me. It's a much bigger thing and a bigger picture, and a, you know, trying to change the world or rebalance an area of it. And I think when you take your ego out and realise it's not about you, then it's sort of, you don't take the messages personally, because what they're attacking is what you're creating, and the belief and the concept and what you're trying to do, and that's what they're attacking. They're not attacking me as a person. They just, it's sort of. So I think when you're able to go, it's not about me. This has nothing to do with me. It makes it a lot easier.
And I think probably an incredibly important coping mechanism for most people, but definitely when you get so many people attacking you, given what you do. I think that tenaciousness and that determination it's very common, as you say, in people with ADHD, but in entrepreneurs, full stop. I when you were saying about kind of always wanting to stand up for things when you were at school, I almost got kicked out of my Catholic sixth form college because I started a campaign to have condoms in the girls' toilets. And there was outrage, absolute outrage. And they were like, we're Catholic. And I was like, yes, but not everybody. And still think we should have them. And they almost kicked me out of school, which was hilarious. So I'm very much like you, which is the best way to get me to do something is to tell me I can't. So that tenacious of you and that determination to stand up for what you believe is right, and also to keep to your core beliefs, clearly started very young. If your 18-year-old self could see you now, that I'm assuming is something she would recognise in you. What would she be blown away by? Like, what would she be really surprised by?
I think she'd be blown away by I've stopped worrying what people think, if that makes sense. I think,
Yeah.
and also the confidence that I'm 18. I mean, I went through eating issues for like a decade, and I think that that body dysmorphia, that insecure, so insecure, and so I didn't like anyone seeing me naked in bright lights. I didn't. And I think she'd look at me now, and I'd run naked down the high street now, post 3 kids. It's sort of that's you just. I think it's that bit. I think it's the self-confidence that, and she'd look at me and go, I'm going to be all right. I'll be all right. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. And how nice would it be that our 18-year-old selves could know that, right?
Yeah.
Would make life a lot easier. So in that journey that you've had, like with Killing Kittens, but also kind of picking up your life, moving to the Caribbean, coming back, all the things you did around like PR before you got into that, kind of, what's your attitude been when you've been faced with failure?
Do you know what? I've always got asked that question, like, where have you failed? And I'm very quick to go, I haven't failed. And then I look back, if I break it all up, there were so many bits that were ideas that didn't work. But it's funny because when you don't see them as failure, you don't, at the time, it's like, it was an idea, well, we could tweak that one, or that one didn't quite work, or commercially, I still don't, we tried. That's the thing, it's sort of, again, it's a mindset of, I don't know, yeah. It's, even in the last 4 years, we made some decisions 4 years ago, and which probably weren't right, and now hindsight, but now we're coming back around and everything's aligned properly. Again, now it's not failing. It's, to me, it's like, you've got to try it all. And we have tried it all, and you quickly go, well, this is the one that suddenly worked, this is working, this is getting more traction, and actually that positioning wasn't right. So it's, not really, I don't see it as failing. I see it as actually unless you failed, in their words, you don't know what is going to work. I think some people stick to one thing, and, if something fails, it's the end of the world, and so that's it, it's not going to work. But it's sort of, we've always tried lots of things, and so you just keep going at 1,000 miles per hour, and that one just isn't. That one just gets parked. It's less failure, but more, we'll just park that for the moment, and it might come back. Yeah. Work. So, so I think
that spin is.
Yeah. Sorry.
I think that spin is really powerful, isn't it? Which is, it's not a failure; it's an experimentation.
Yeah.
And experiments, you do experiments because you learn from them. And I think it's a much healthier attitude to life, let alone business. Just actually, what I did was an experiment, and it didn't work, so I tried something else. If you think about all the decisions you've made in your life, and obviously you made some instant decisions. I'm off to the Caribbean. What would you say is the best decision you've ever made?
Well, I think one of the best decisions was probably taking on a business partner in 2017.
Okay.
I would say that, and again, that is, taking ego out of it, and that, the awareness, and I would say that's the best decision, because, as you know, it's sort of, I hate that thing, is like, how do you do it all? And I think as women, we do it badly a lot of the time, and painfully and exhaustingly, and it's, it's not a pedestal to do, because there's guilt every which way you look, and no matter what decision you make, you feel guilty, and the system's rigged against you, and I think, so that's enabled me to actually try and have the balance, more of the balance in life as a whole, and the business has grown massively. He's the yin to my yang, and actually we work really, really well together. But him being very detailed and on it, and that strategy and all of that detail kind of lets me sort of take a bit of a step back and be more the big picture, but actually, but that then enables me, you know, to be the mum. So so I would say, you know, and if I hadn't had kids, would I have taken on a business partner? Who knows?
But it works for the life that your life has evolved into.
Yeah, that's the thing, and I think we, you know, it's that definition of success, isn't it? It's sort of, I think, again, it's always been quite a patriarchal, you know, definition of success. You've got a big house, you earn loads of money. It's sort of, and actually, I think the past few years and stuff, see more people coming around to actually, it doesn't have to be, you know, the definition of success to me is being able to do it all, to, you know, have the business, and the business is growing fast. You know, it's massive growth at the moment, the last few years. But at the same time, you know, I've got 3 kids who are 7, 9 and 11, and I can pick them up from school, and I can see their school plays at midday, and, you know, and do that kind of stuff. So, and I can go and do all my crazy sports adventures, races and stuff I do. And that, to me, that's success. Do I have as much money as I want? No. Would it be great to have a much bigger house? Who knows? But to me, that's successful, because I've got to a point where it's all balanced. I'm not missing out on anything, and I've seen too many people who had too many, you know, women I know who missed out on their kids being little. You know, chasing the money and chasing this out and working, you know, from 7 in the morning till 10 at night, and having the nannies, and it's massive regret, you know, and men, you know, a lot of regrets of, you know, when you speak to people is, so yeah, I think that's...
Yeah. And I think, obviously, you spending that much time with your kids is the absolute opposite to your childhood, right? Because you were in boarding school for the majority of that time. And so you probably recognise that value as a parent, having been a kid who didn't get, as you said, as a kid of an armed forces parent, you didn't actually get to see your folks that often.
Yeah, and sports, I was a real sporty kid, and bike 3 are really sporty. Matches all the time, all in the week, all the weekend, every weekend. And that's the thing, it's sort of being able to watch all the matches. So like now, when one of them goes, well, you watched his match, you didn't watch my match, and I'm like, you have no idea. You have no idea how lucky you are.
So you've touched on sport a couple of times, and we've kind of just washed over it. But just before I get to the next question, tell us a little bit more about some of the extreme sports you've been involved in, because I know it's a real passion of yours. And you kind of touched on it, you did it at school, and then you've touched on it again, so I'm going to bring you back to it. So tell us a little bit more about the things that bring you joy when it comes to doing some of that sport.
Do you know, I was just always was a really sporty kid. I did loads of lacrosse, and we did some hockey, netball, you know, just all the sport. And at university I played lacrosse, and it was sort of a high level there. But I mean, it's a real sports university, so it's... I don't know, sport's just always been, and a big part of what I did, you know, in my degree was sports psychology, and that I equate a lot into the business world, and but also the sports side of the team stuff, and it's just always been something I do, and just taking care of myself and, you know, mental health, and an outlet for me. I think if I didn't, looking back again, if I didn't have the sport, I would have found something to be really disruptive. And when I look at my 3 kids who are all massive neurospicy as well and completely hyper, it just sort of, if they weren't doing the amount of sport they're doing, you'd get in all sorts of trouble. So you'd go down focus holes in other directions that aren't healthy. So it kind of, and so when I launched the setup called the Sisterhood 19 years ago, and that was similar to KK, and it kind of, hang on a minute, men are leaving uni, carrying on with their boys' sport, their golf weekends, their football teams, and girls leave and there's nothing. Especially, you know, back now there's more. But, you know, back then, you know, our generation, it wasn't really, you know, you hit your 20s, you came and worked, and going into doing, staying in teams and stuff, didn't happen. Whereas the lads had the boys' sport, that never gave up. So it was, what started as a drunk bet to race a group of guys across the English Channel in a dragon boat, because they were called the Brotherhood. That sort of started the Sisterhood, and it very quickly, again, saw how much confidence it gave women doing something out of their comfort zone, and actually they could do it, and then that went out into the rest of their lives. And that to me again, like KK in the you know, if you can own your voice in the bedroom, you can own it. They're very intertwined on the me just wanting, you know, when you see so much potential in women and the insecurity and the feeling like a second class citizen and they're not good enough. It's getting that, and sport is was such a male, you know, thing back then. Way better now, but it was so that I just wanted to carry it on, and the community bit of it, and being part of a team. So we, you know, have done more every year. We've done loads of different, and there's been probably 300 women that have just come in and out and been part of it, and always for raising money for women's and children's charities, different ones, but everything, you know, 4 of us relays around the channel, a load of about 30 of us relay ran from LA to Vegas as part of as the speed project race. We've from Kilimanjaro to Marathon to Saab to what I mean, you know, as you're aware, trying to get you on the next one. You know, 54 female founders. You know, we raced rickshaws. We didn't race; it was a rally from Chennai to Goa this year. So you know, all the way across India, yeah. So it's sort of, you know, 42. There's a, you know, big race around Venice and boats. So just loads of sort of Amazon raft race. Just kind of crazy adventure type, right? But where you are in a team, and it is, and it's that belonging. It's that, and you're doing something so out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I love it because it's a bit of a twisted psychological experiment. Because you see people who are so used to being in their little comfort bubbles, and a lot of time it's, you know, women who are running businesses and they're used to being the big dogs and giving the orders, and then I would say it's sort of day 1, day 2, or day 2, watching when the switch goes, and I'm like, people either step in or they step out. It's kind of that whole control goes, and they realise it's not about them, and that's it. I think when you see that switch in people, and you know, one girl this year is big CEO founder, and it, you know, was a pain at the beginning, and I, you know, she didn't do the first day. Then I thought that she's either going to get on a plane, fly to Caribbean, or and she was there at the end of the first day, you know, bought all the welcome drinks, different person, I'm doing it. And then at the end, she just, you know, tears, and said that she remembered who she was, you know, the old her, before all the world got in the way.
Yeah, amazing. And I will do it one day. I promise I will do the
Good.
rickshaw one day. Maybe not next year, but I will definitely do it. Or your next crazy challenge. We'll pick one. So we've talked a bit about kind of decisions that you've made, and I'm sure over the years you've got given lots of advice. I know I have, and we've probably given lots of advice as well. What's the best piece of advice you've been given that you completely ignored?
So a good piece of advice that I should have listened to.
Yeah. That maybe at the time you thought, oh, that was good advice, but you just decided, you know what, I'm just going to go my own way.
Probably like take care of the pennies. Just get get someone doing the finance side of it quicker. Because again, it's not, when you're not a detail person and you don't, you go 3,000, I go 3,000 miles per hour, and I made probably decisions because I didn't know the tech world. They're like trying to sort, and they speak a different language. So kind of, you know, I think it was, sort of agreeing to stuff in the early days, tech-wise, and financially, that I shouldn't have, hindsight shouldn't have done.
Yeah. And I think we learn that as we go. One of the things I see in a lot of founders, irrelevant of gender, is they wait too late to get a fractional CFO, because if actually they're not into the numbers, let someone else do the stuff that isn't your interest, but because the numbers are important to enable you to do everything else. So we like to issue each week our guests with a challenge. So if you were to set a personal challenge for our guest, you are the guest, sorry. If you were to set a personal challenge to our listeners, what would that challenge be?
I would say, right, like, what are you scared of? What's stopping you? What what are you scared of when it comes, if you're wanting to launch a business, if you want to do something, and write down, and what is the worst case scenario? Why are you scared of it? I think sometimes when you, talk through or say it out loud, what it is and the reasons, it can sound, in a similar way, it's not scary, but when it comes to sex, it's, I can't sleep with them, and you're like, why not? And you really push it, and people cannot explain it. It's all that messaging and shame that we had as kids that's in our bones and in our souls. And when you really make them try and say, why can't? That you can't, it's that computer says no in your brain. And you have to unpick it at why. And then why should you be doing it?
And that is so interesting, because I think just that one bit that I really hear in that is just saying it out loud can sometimes, even if it's just yourself, just saying it out loud completely changes the way your brain thinks about it. Like the why not, like why can't I do that? Why can't I go start a business? Just saying it out loud, just does something, doesn't it? I think sometimes.
Yeah, completely, because then you say that sounded ridiculous. That, and if someone else saying it, if someone else was saying it, it's saying like can't, but your brain's very quick to say, I can't do it. And there's a thing in our house, and actually the kids, one of the littlies, 7-year-old said it to the 8-year-old the other day, there's no such thing as can't in this family, just how can I? Because it actually does something to your brain. If you say, if it can't, it shuts down. It's done. That's it. End of conversation. If you go, well, how can I do it? How can I make it happen? It makes your brain start thinking in ways of how are you going to be able to do something. And I think, we have a no such thing as can't, which backfires on me regularly. But yeah.
Yes. I think raising independent children is one thing. Living with them while you're raising them is a whole other ball game, I'm sure.
You just have to follow from behind and just gently, go.
So we're at our final question, and thank you so much for sharing your story, because it's been really interesting, and I know there's been some amazing nuggets in there of things that you've learned that will help other people. Not least the no such thing as can't, which I do like. If there was an actual guide that was the beginner's guide to being a grown-up, of all the things you've learned, what's the one thing you would put in that guide?
I think the self-confidence. I think when, you get rid of that insecurity and stop worrying about other people's judgments, then the whole world opens up. And I think the faster you can do that, then the quicker you do stuff. I think that holds too many people back, worrying about what people think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Emma, thank you so much for joining us on the guide today and sharing your story and your learns and your nuggets of experience. It's been genuinely fun, and I will one day come on one of your crazy challenges with you, I promise.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of The Beginner's Guide to Being a Grown-Up. Please do like, follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Next week, we are interviewing another Emma Warren. Now, Emma is a multi-exited founder. She has her own podcast, which is The Country Woman's Guide, which I have also been on recently. And she tells us about exiting businesses, founding businesses, starting a retreat, and lots of other things. So join us next week when we interview Emma. And in the meantime, enjoy being a grown-up.